Hi, my name is Kiran Patankar. I am President, CEO, and a Director of Maple Gold Mines Limited. Maple Gold is a exploration and development company focused in Canada. We have a 400 square kilometer land package in Quebec. It has currently a resource of just over 3 million ounces of gold at our Douay project. There's also a past producing gold complex called Joutel. And within that, land package is ripe for discoveries, and the geologic land package is one of the best, I think, in the area. We also have a strategic partnership with Agnico Eagle, which is one of the best operators in the gold space. So lots of excitement, lots of news flow over the last couple of months, and excited to talk to you about new developments at Maple Gold.
Kiran, lovely to have you on the show. Look, it kind of feels to me like, I know you've been involved with the company for a while, but maybe, only lastly as CEO. There have been some changes. It feels like the new guys come in and have some thoughts about how the company can do better, a new direction. Can you explain, if that's true, and exactly what are you working towards?
Sure. Thanks, Matthew. Good to see you. Yeah, changes were not made for change's sake, right? Changes needed to be made. It was clear to certainly our partner, our shareholders, that the direction that the project and the company were on, the path that the company and the project were on, was not creating value, generating value. Leadership transition was announced in August of 2023. I took over as interim CEO, and my first steps in evaluating, instead of just making changes immediately, certain things were low-hanging fruit, but we needed to take a systematic evaluation of the project, the partnership, and the people. We did that. And, as a result of the work that's been going on, we've been systematically reevaluating a wealth of data on our projects technically. We have recently announced a very strong transaction, which will grant us 100% ownership of the entire 400 square kilometer land package. Again, with the support of our partner, who's been a great JV partner to us over the last 3 years. I can get into the specifics of the deal, but it was a very company-friendly deal. We also were able to announce a $4 million financing at a substantial premium, with Agnico Eagle taking a 19.9% stake in the company. And we've just also recently announced upgrades to our board of directors and management team. So we have the right structure. The geology hasn't changed, right? The assets are great. We all know that Quebec is the jurisdiction to be in from a gold exploration and development standpoint. Lots of favorable things there. But how the company operates, how the project moves forward, and how we actually advance and deliver tangible results and shareholder value, that all needed to be addressed, and they certainly have been, and will continue to be.
Okay, as you say, the geology hasn't changed, but it's also a case of, if you don't know it's broke, you can't fix it. You say perhaps the company was on a path which wasn't sustainable and can be improved. So what are the improvements that you, one, have implemented, and two, see that may allow it to capture some of that value that perhaps it wasn't before?
Absolutely. When you start with a strong endowment of gold, what are the elements of the project that would have attracted a partner of the caliber of Agnico Eagle? It's got all of the elements there for success: the geology and exploration and discovering world-class gold deposits. There's a bit of a recipe, right? You have to have the right rocks. They have to be of the right age. You have to have favorable structures, right? And having known mineralization as we do at our Douay project, having different styles of mineralization, right? All within a fertile, district that has produced, 200 plus million ounces of gold over its tenure, and with a lot more to be found. So all of those elements were there. And that's what I mean when I say the geology hadn't changed. What was clear, though, was that Maple Gold and the partnership, we were drilling holes, we were having, relative success, but this is a complex system. The whole discovery hole at Douay was drilled in 1982. It's been known, the resources that are there have obviously, we did a 2019 resource, we did an upgrade, an update of the resource in 2022. But actually advancing the current ounces that we have towards a production scenario, which is obviously in the interest of not only Agnico Eagle, but certainly shareholders. We have to de-risk those ounces. That none of the de-risking of those ounces was really being completed under the first few years of the JV. The second thing is systematically exploring the overall land package requires vectoring based on data. You can't just simply drill holes. I think not to say that there were just drilling holes and taking shots in the dark, but especially with the deep drilling program, that was the last program that we did. Yeah, there were not a lot of vectors going down to those depths, and they were expensive holes as well. And that gets me to my other point. At the project level and at the company level, we were not operating lean. There was waste. I saw that as when I became CFO in 2022. I made corporate changes and operational changes during the course of my tenure as CFO, but I've really had the ability as CEO to dramatically right-size the company and right-size our project so that we are spending money efficiently and making sure that investor money is going where it creates the most value, which is in the ground.
Right. Explain that to me, because this is quite important. Because if you're doing, this is kind of like Maple Gold 2.0, right? To me, reading it around, what's changed in the last, several months. It feels like you're going again. To do that, you're going to need significant change in terms of personnel, in terms of process, in terms of reporting, and have a really clear view of where you think the value creation is coming from. And obviously in the ground is a big significant part of that, but so is also clearly communicating why you're doing things in the order that you're doing things and how you're spending your money. So again, can you talk to that?
Sure. So I think Exhibit A would be in this Maple 2.0 was when I took over in August of last year. There's always pressure to put out news releases in the junior market, right? We are non-revenue generating. You see a lot of press releases that are designed obviously to inform the market on what's happening corporately. We had a lot of things to fix. We had to reevaluate the data. We had to work on a better path forward for the assets, not just the short-term wins of let's just unlock $6 million of Agnico spending and just go drill more holes, because that is the same process that led you to the challenges and to the problems. And what I think was not really well understood was I'm an investment banker, right? So I also am a geologist. So I'm looking at all things simultaneously. The structure of the joint venture, would have put us in a pretty challenging situation, certainly with the fall in our market cap. We're partnered with a behemoth. They're an amazing partner, but if we had advanced that, just quickly looking for a quick win, in February of 2025, when we got to the joint funding phase of the joint venture,
which year?
That's February.
What year
the
was
original joint venture deal that was signed with Agnico in 2021 had a 4-year earn-in phase by Agnico, and so that was $18.25 million. Unlocking their $6 million just as a quick win, as I said, it would have put us in a position in February of 2025 where whatever programs were purported or approved by joint venture, we would have to come up with our 50% pro rata share of that. Otherwise, we would risk dilution. The project could also have sort of, if the success wasn't there, it could have also been put on the shelf, in which case it's our principal asset, and nobody has a golden share or can, and again, we do a lot of things via consensus with Agnico, and they've been an amazing, a partner both technically and operating and from a corporate standpoint. So, fixing that, the way that the company approaches looking at its data, right? Because again, data is an asset, and we know with AI, with all these, horsepower, computing horsepower, there's a lot of things you can use, but fundamentally, you have to take a look at the rocks themselves, right? And we have 250,000 meters of drill core at Douay to go on. That's a huge value. There's a replacement cost there that's in the $75 million using today's average drill cost per meter. There's a wealth of geophysical, geochemical, lithologic, structural data. All of it needed to be systematically evaluated and put together in something that could actually lead us toward what we all want to see, which is not only a resource that's growing and expanding with lots more ounces there, but that those are economic ounces, right? And so, economic ounces are what our partner uses to drive their released results. Just in the past few days, where they're producing half a billion dollars, in cash flow over a quarter. It's because they're doing their homework. They're looking at high upside, high quality gold assets. A lot of that production is obviously in the region. So, again, we have a great starting point. And I think the fact that we've now got the structure, the financing to advance drill programs that are based on data with a team to execute, that is really what is the driver and the catalyst for, unfortunately in this junior sector, what there are a lot of, as are the rebrand, roll company shares back and just call it a new company. this has been a top to bottom transformation, right? And it is going somewhat noticed in the market. We obviously traded quite a few shares when we announced Agnico taking a 19.9% stake at a 42% premium to our then pre-announcement share price. But it's still at its current $30 million market cap with the endowment, with the structure. It's a tough time for junior companies, but I think this is one that people should take a look at.
Yeah, no, I hear you in terms of the valuation of companies, and certainly some of the ones in Quebec, which is a good mining jurisdiction, good mining province, I should say. It's not, they are not getting the values that perhaps they want, and I think of three pretty large ones with plus 3 million ounce resources, and it's tough out there. So talk to me about the conversation with Agnico. Obviously, they're still in it. They're still involved technically. You're saying? I think I heard you say. Yeah.
Yes, they are involved technically. In fact, I'm looking forward to. We are all visiting our project site next week. That's myself, our full board, which is an recently enhanced board with the addition of Darwin Green, our full technical team, including our new VP of Technical Services, Ian Cunningham Dunlop, our advisors, Paul Harbidge, and some representatives from Agnico are coming up to site next week. This is a partnership. It has moved from the phase of joint venture partnership into more strategic partnership. But the conversations, again, when you do any type of transaction, this one took a lot of effort, as I described when we put the press release out on the June 20th, when we announced the restructuring transaction. It was the result of collaboration at all levels. So this was not a corporate deal. This was not a technical deal. This was every moving part was what was talking to each other about what is best for the project, right? Because I think the long-term interest here is, when you look at a land package that we have that's close to, it's road accessible, it's power accessible, there's 45-person camp there, the gold endowment's there, and it sits, right in that sort of triangle between, Detour, Malartic and, Macassa, right? Like you've got this sort of triangle of significant gold production by Agnico. I think it's always going to be a strategic asset. And I think finding a way forward that allows Maple to drive the exploration, but again, tied to a key development milestones. And that was where there was a lot of collaboration is we sat down and we said, what is it about these projects that would drive a significant investment on the part of Agnico, right? We talked about JV. We talked about the things that originally happened when we formed that JV. And we talked about what worked and what didn't. In light of not only what's happened over the course of the 2 or 3 years that we've been working with Agnico as a JV partner, but also what's happened in the market, right? Because at the end of the day, having the ability to drive both assets, and particularly Joutel, which is not a very well-known asset, but it was Agnico's first gold mine. It was a flagship asset. The Eagle in Agnico Eagle comes from the Eagle mine, which we control 100% of. So, past producing mine complex with lots of upside, big endowment. We'd like to see obviously more dollars going in the ground, but we've got to do it in a way that makes sense. And I think there are a couple of things, and I'll describe those. I think there's advancement on multiple fronts when it comes to the asset. That this transaction and the continued collaboration with Agnico will unlock.
Okay, and I want to kind of stay in this area around this JV restructuring, as it were, because I think it's really important. We've seen companies, the likes of Rio Tinto, etc. They structure the deals badly at the beginning, and even they get caught out with their big balance sheets, etc. And here, the type of money, your market cap, the type of money you may be talking about with Agnico Eagle, it's a rounding error, less than a rounding error almost. So, but for you, regaining 100% control of your assets is important, possibly important. Do you feel, in terms of people starting to value you properly, as opposed to being sort of subservient to the needs of a large strategic partner with the previous structure? So again, what do you think it's going to do for you, this restructuring? Why go through that process?
Yeah, I think the JV deal that was originally entered into was not poorly constructed. It was very well constructed, very well thought out. What you can't account for is you can try to paper up both legally and commercially, various scenarios for, how the project's going to advance, right? The reality is had we hit some monster drill hole, had we, had some of the things that we had all hoped for in the first few years of the JV come to fruition, we probably wouldn't be sitting here, right? We probably wouldn't be having this kind of conversation. Now, how do you create opportunity out of, as we said when we started out, that there were certain things that were going well, certain things that weren't? Rather than focus on things that weren't going well, what I did, and I think this is very much appreciated by our partner, was, focusing on the problems doesn't get you anywhere, right? What you have to do is come up with solutions. So this is where relying on a significant and extensive transaction background, I have a lot of respect for my counterparts. We not only were handling our business on the ground, because that's task one, is make sure the project. So in parallel with everything we did on the restructuring, work on the project was continuing, right? Work on the project to understand and unlock, and that was being communicated. But on the restructuring side, I said having 100% control of this asset for Maple. First of all, from the way the market looks at Maple Gold, 50-50 JVs, when markets are terrible, people love it because it looks like your big brother is the one that's spending the money and you can just sit back and have a free carry and a free ride. The reality is we didn't have an unlimited free carry, right? That spending period ended in less than a year. So we were going to have to pony up significant amounts of capital without necessarily having the direction, right? Or the full direction or control, because we were only a 50% partner as opposed to controlling it, as a majority partner, right? We were operating as de facto operator, but every decision that was made during the course of the JV was made by a consensus via management committee. So having 100% control, not only does it allow us to control our own destiny, the most important thing it does, I think, from investors taking a new look at Maple is, instantaneously, Matthew, we should, not that the market would necessarily give you this because it has to be explained, but we were being valued on an attributable 1.5 million ounces because that's 50% of the 3 million ounce gold endowment. Overnight, with the transaction announcement, we are now a 3 million ounce company, right? Certainly there's a back and right, and it's tied to development milestones, but one of the things that is important to look at is if you start looking at, Maple as a 3 million ounce exploration development company at a current 30 million market cap, applying, the cost of gold or the price of gold and exchange rates, et cetera. We are trading at, about $6-7 an ounce, relative to a peer group that includes North American developers and explorers, it's significantly higher. And doesn't have a lot of the advantages that we do, not the least of which is, presence in Quebec, where they give you back, 39 cents on every exploration dollar you put in the ground. We're going to be leveraging that with the $4 million that we just raised, is actually turning $4 million into, 5.6, which is roughly what Agnico had left on their spending under the joint venture. So we gained 100% control, direction. We've gained 1.5 million ounces literally overnight. And what did we give up? We as part of the original JV agreement, Agnico had earned into a 1% dilution NSR over the entire project. So that was obviously granted. And then this back and right, this is where the nuance is, right? Because certainly with other assets and other companies, we've seen them with Barrick, with Newmont and Goldcorp before them on assets like Eskate Creek, on assets like Camino Rojo. Back ends are known. People know that, sometimes you give up an asset, operator takes over, and if you hit certain milestones, the larger partner can come back in by paying some kind of a multiple of dollars spent in the ground. But that had not been actually executed and done by Agnico. So there was institutional, work that had to be done to educate and work through, over the course of several months, thinking about all the scenarios, right? All the things and the lessons learned from, what worked under the previous JV, what didn't work. Because again, when you look at, and we just obviously mailed our circular, we've got our vote coming up on September 9th. When you look at that circular and you look at the documents that are in there, not only was there a complete option and conveyance agreement, which is transferring control of the assets to Maple Gold in return for an option and an NSR to Agnico. Again, no money changing hands here. So we acquired, Joutel. We acquired $12 million that Agnico's already spent in the ground in exchange for the NSR and the back end. But as part of that back end, there's a whole new form of joint venture agreement that if Agnico chooses and elects upon Maple achieving the milestones to back in, all the things that we learned as part of the last couple of years of operating under the joint venture, they've been addressed in the new form of joint venture, right? So the future for Maple is really bright because, again, as I said, we're advancing the projects on multiple fronts. One of the key things that triggers, it's a double trigger milestone on the back end by Agnico. So, it's not just we're going to go back to the same thing we were doing, which is drilling holes and trying to make big discoveries. That's certainly going to be a part of what we do. But because capital is limited and, we don't have a $20 million exploration budget right now, we have a $4 million exploration budget by way of the strong investment and endorsement that Agnico, has made in Maple via their equity placement as part of a charity flow-through deal that we announced concurrently with the JV restructuring. So with that $4 million, I think we need to do two things. I think we need to show the path forward for the 3 million ounces that we already have, not just in terms of how many more holes are we going to drill, but what does that look like at these gold prices, assuming some conservatism, looking at operating costs, other things. That's why we brought on a PNG as a technical services VP to help us really advance, an economic deposit. And then once we do that, you start to see that the $300 million NPV that was one of the triggers for, Agnico thinking about exercising their option. People need to see that we see and Agnico sees that kind of value there as a floor, right? And I think there's a lot more to generate, not only through de-risking of the Douay deposit, but also systematic exploration of Joutel and the broader land package.
Right, and if I look at that back end, right, that you mentioned, you talk about key development milestones in your marketing material. Again, who controls that and who controls the timing of that? Because presumably they're going to want some pretty big targets hit, right? And if you do that, one would assume the market would reward you for sure. But what's the sort of time frame? How much more money do you think you need to spend to be able to kind of get to a point where you can deliver those milestones?
I think starting to show with the resource that we currently have, which, remember, we did the 2019 resource with RPA. That was done by Maple as a standalone before we entered into the joint venture. When we issued our 2022 resource update with SLR, that was with the involvement and the input of our partner. So this is a project that they know well. They know the positives, they know the challenges, and we, by knowing that and by continuing to communicate with them, it doesn't take a lot for us to take what we currently have with the horsepower, the bench strength, the engineering background. Certainly, I'm an engineer as well, so I want to build things, right? At the end of the day, I think showing a path forward and some kind of viable development path for the 3 million ounces we have at Douay, that's not going to cost us a lot of money in the near term. Because I think at the end of the day, those types of engineering scoping studies, internal scoping studies leading to PEAs, the trigger for the back end is guided by, number one, a pre-feasibility or feasibility study that demonstrates a $300 million NPV. So certainly just doing an internal scoping study or doing a PEA, it doesn't trigger the back end, right? It's an indicator of what kind of value we think is there. And it gives us a framework for how we continue to advance and develop the asset. Frankly, I think it's also good for Maple and Maple shareholders to properly value Douay, right? As opposed to using the back of the envelope, finger in the air, what's a dollar per ounce sort of count on the 3 million. It's how many of those ounces are actually economic? What's a development scenario? So those kinds of things I think we can do by not spending a lot of money. I think what we really would like to do is take this $4 million that we have, and as I said, we've brought costs down, our fixed cost of operating the site, bringing the right people in. I think a drill program of between 7,500 to 10,000 meters is very doable at our current average cost per meter. Those are still yet to be determined what exactly the targets are. That's part of what we're doing next week when we're sitting down with our full team and partner. But in terms of what it takes and who controls those milestones, that's on us. Right? It's up to us to deliver. If we don't do what we have set out to do, that option just survives. It just sits out there, and the market can choose to value the likelihood or the probability of Agnico ever exercising it. But I think the near-term thing for me, what excites me is that it sets me up very well, right? I've got clear milestones, clear deliverables, and as I said, they're it's a two-pronged approach. Certainly, the discovery potential, the recipe that I described, the geology, the endowment. We saw it just recently. You saw Filo mining. The discovery hole at Filo was drilled in 2022, right? And 2 years later, here they are with a $4.5 billion deal. I'm not saying that that is maple, but I'm saying the potential for that with the rocks that we have, with the geology, with the endowment, et cetera. We know that a few drill holes, one drill hole can change an entire story. So that discovery element of what we're doing is always going to be there. But rather than drill $800,000 holes without proper data and proper vectoring, that seems to me like needle in a haystack type drilling. This is going to be a lot more systematic, right? This is going to be, are we drilling, first of all, targets that are supported by the geology, by the geophysics, by the geochemistry, by the interpretation of the structural regime, that those would be favorable for gold mineralization. That's just the first layer. The second layer is, on every target that we propose, is it an open pit target? Is it a bulk tonnage underground target, or is it a high grade selective underground target? In either of those cases, roughly what your costs are, right, for open pit mining, for bulk underground mining, and for selective underground mining. So you have some kind of thought as to what does success look like with these holes, and do we think that success potential exists? For example, when you put a hole in the ground, is it surrounded by other holes, or is it pretty wide open, right? We know that these, 10 gram over 10 meter type, 100 gram meter type intercepts that are open in all directions has a lot more potential than something that's, more of the same type drilling, where you've got oceans of 1 gram material and you're just drilling another hole that adds ounces but doesn't necessarily add to the economics of the project. So, really what we're going to try to do with the limited money that we have, I'm not saying we are cashed up for the next drill program, which is going to be fall and winter of 2024 and 2025. A lot of what we're going to be doing is going to be proof of concept to show that the model that we've taken time to systematically rebuild has validity. I think it will. Certainly, using empirical data is a very good indicator. It doesn't guarantee success, as in all exploration. There's always an element of risk to it. But I think one of the things that helps us is that we are not drilling greenfields projects, right? We have a known endowment of gold, both at Douay with 3 million ounces and at Joutel with past production. So the things that we're going to be drilling and the ways we're going to be advancing it, once we come out with our strategy, again, the market should expect within the next couple of weeks, now that we've got the team in place, as we head into the fall, a very comprehensive exploration update that describes all the work that we've completed and also lays out how we approach targeting, what those targets start to look like, and when we expect to actually get the drills turning. All of that is coming up in what I believe will be very exciting, fall and winter.
Okay, so brilliant. So lots of process vectoring, systematic. It all sounds like everyone's in control. You also said you're in control of the ability to deliver into those development milestones. There's a bit of me that just is trying to understand the Agnico relationship further down the line. Look, they're a big company. As I said, projects like this are rounding errors for them. If they don't want to do something with you because they got so many other things, on the go at the moment, and obviously there's lots of M&A going on out there, versus of equals, etc., and they are somewhat busy. Do you think that the 19.9% is a barrier for others looking in? Are those things easily managed in terms of getting some competitive tension coming in and allowing you choice moving forward? Well, at some point in the distance, I should say, not moving forward from here.
Yeah. No, and look, I have to give all the credit in the world to our partner. Certainly, they have a lot on the go, and they are much bigger than us. But they've always been very invested. As a partner, you could not ask for a better group to work with. They are leaders in responsible, sustainable, value added mine production, focused in Canada. Certainly, they're global. They've got operations across the world. They've got a tremendous organization. They have outperformed in the market because of how smart they are and how their ability to execute. We should emulate ourselves, as all juniors should, on that type of model. The fact that we have the time that we do with them, given our relative small size, it's a testament not only to, certainly I think any investor invests in assets, but they also invest in people. And I think, having had a previous relationship with Agnico as an investment banker, built those relationships within the C-suite at Agnico in my previous career before I joined Maple was helpful. But also there was an approach here on my part, which was not just relying on just the high level relationships. I've served since I started as interim CEO in August, I served as interim general manager of the Agnico Maple joint venture. So I've actually taken more of a grassroots approach where it's been building consensus amongst the technical teams, amongst the operating teams on the ground. That's my DNA. I'm a, salt of the earth miner, right? I got into geology and geological engineering because I just fundamentally love rocks and I don't get wedded because I spend enough time as a banker to know, you can't get too in love with your own rocks, but you have to be realist when it comes to how you actually properly advance and create value for shareholders. So what I see with what we're doing, I think there were impediments, certainly. I've also, by the way, I started with Maple as a senior VP of growth strategy. So I've really been the go-to when it comes to all of our discussions with M&A partners, et cetera. There was feedback, certainly, that, a 50-50 JV plus equity investment, that those actually could be not viewed as being, they're impediments, right, to having another large mining company come in because certainly Agnico has that seat at the table. I would argue that I'm less concerned at this point, certainly 100% ownership and Agnico with a 19.9% stake in the company. Those, to me, I just view them as positives. I don't view those as impediments in any way. I think actually it's a cleaner structure. If Agnico likes what we're doing, they can maintain. They've got an investor rights agreement with Maple Gold that goes back to 2020. So they have the right to maintain their 99. They have the right to appoint a director, various terms that are in that agreement. But I think the 100% ownership for us is really important. I also think that really what is going to drive interest, not only by Agnico, but any other party, it's going to be success, right? It's going to be success with the program that we're doing, continued demonstration that we are being fiscally responsible at the corporate level, that we are upgrading and improving our corporate governance, that we think, and I think certainly, like, most of my background has been with, mid-tier and major mining companies over the course of my career. I think that way, but in a good way. I want to be the best in class when it comes to an exploration and development company, but I don't want to overinflate our, just because we hit a good drill hole, for example, doesn't mean you go out and you start spending $3 million on IR, right? I think that the most important thing that investors, and most of the investors that I've had the chance to interact with, they know I return the calls, I return the emails, I'm the one that's doing all the outreach. I run the social media. I think those are things that I enjoy doing because it's part of an innate necessity for us to communicate our story well. That's why I appreciate the platform and the opportunity with you. But it also helps us to manage our overhead costs, right? And as long as I think, when I say investors invest in assets as well as people, I think there is a real connection that we have. I don't rely on it. I won't invoke it. We did say a lot about our partner in the past when the drilling results weren't there. And I think that's just not the right way to approach a strong partnership. A strong partnership is, we know we don't need to be soliciting other partners to come in right now because we have the best in class. So what we need to do is we need to maximize the benefits of that partnership at a corporate level, at an operating level, and certainly at a technical level. And that's what we're attempting to do.
Okay. I think you and the Scouts, you'd have had all the badges, wouldn't you? I suspect. Right. I think that's a really good overview of where you're at, and more importantly, where you've come from and how you've got to where you are now. And I think I can see the opportunity in front of you. And just in terms, if you don't mind, just remind us the kind of deliverables we're looking for from you towards the end of the year. You mentioned obviously September 9th, the vote, but what else is coming down the line? Yeah,
so we have our shareholder vote. As I said, it's coming up on September 9th. So I urge all shareholders to take a look at the information in our circular and register their vote. Strong transaction, obviously, with the restructuring deal. Expect that to go through. And once that's done, obviously, we're anticipating success here. all the work that's happening behind the scenes that's happened over the course of the year in terms of getting a better understanding on the asset, the project, how we advance those things. That's going to be summarized in a detailed exploration update and outlining our plans for the remainder of 2024. I can tell you that those do. I'm excited to say that those include drilling. Right, we intend to drill this year. We took a year of hiatus because all the things that needed to be fixed, including, as I said, I know investors are always hungry for news flow and and it has been, unfortunately, a market where juniors that are even drilling, very high quality holes aren't necessarily being rewarded for those. So I don't think we have lost a lot. In fact, I think the systematic way that I approached fixing this company was fixing the structure first. You have to lay the foundation. All the things that are going to come via the drill bit, via better targeting methodology, via better, closer collaboration with our partner, via having the right technical people on the ground to execute. That has to be laid upon the right structure to actually deliver value. So when we see a drill hole, hopefully later this year, that will show proof of concept of the new methodology that we've put into place, the new 3D models, the new data-driven approach that we have implemented over the course of the last year. Well, people looking at it will say, first they would say, well, but you only have 50% of the asset, right? So you only get half of the benefit of all that. Now, hopefully we'll have that, not only the ability to kind of take full credit, right, for the work that we're doing. Not that we look for credit. We obviously look for it in the form of share price appreciation, which is a benefit to all shareholders. But, I think the drilling season for us, just to remind your audience, we don't drill typically year round. We need to have the ground hard and frozen in order for us to get the drills turning and to get them into certain areas that are highly, prospective. So, that freeze, climate's obviously, it's been a hot one this summer. So hopefully we get a nice, equally cold winter and we can get those going. Typically that's sort of mid to late November when we have the ability to start mobilizing rigs, but all the preparation work, ongoing updates on what the plan, what the vision is going to be for the assets, continued upgrades to our personnel, strengthening of our board. All of those things are things that investors can look forward to over the next couple of months. And I will also say this, when we have been quiet on the news side, we have also been quiet on the conference side, on the investor side. I've certainly been doing a lot of outreach on my own, but it is not the time when you don't have news to talk about to be spending money unnecessarily trying to drive a story that people don't understand, and even maybe we don't understand well enough yet. Now that we have this transaction out, now that we have the right people in place, now that we have the money in the bank to be able to drill and execute, this is going to be an incredibly busy fall season for getting the story out there, right? So we have conferences coming up in Beaver Creek, Colorado, in Zurich. We have virtual conferences coming up, for investors in the U.S. I've had the pleasure of talking to investors on multiple continents in Maple Gold. I think there's a lot of excitement there for what we're doing, but I think making sure that I'm and we as a team are communicating all along the way what we're going to be doing over the next couple of months, so that, again, when we drill that proof of concept hole or holes, investors realize that this was not a fluke. This was not needle in a haystack type drilling. This was based on a systematic review and a process. I'm a big believer, and I set out to transform this company because I'm a believer that good process leads to good results. And the results, as we know in the exploration business, sometimes a whopper of a drill hole can come when you're looking in the wrong rocks, when you're looking, in the place that you couldn't get the helicopter to a particular area, so you decided to land it over there, and that's where you put your hole. So certainly there's that fun element of risk associated with all of this, but what we can control, and the other thing, of course, is we're in a buoyant gold price environment, which I'm not a prognosticator. I certainly follow macro trends. I think there's still run room left in the gold price. It hasn't translated down to the junior space yet, but we can control those things, right? What we can control is what we're doing as Maple Gold to create value for us, for shareholders, for stakeholders, good responsible development, engagement with partners at all levels. Those are the things we're doing right now, and we're going to continue to do going forward. And as I said, we talk about what was wrong or what happened, what we inherited in August, what we've done to fix it. Now we're going to be talking a lot more about what are we going to do going forward, right? That is the story that I think investors can really look forward to. But certainly, The fix, a lot of the devil has been in the details and making sure that it's being done properly. It's been my responsibility, and I'm proud to say that we've done the lion's share of the heavy lifting that needed to be done to produce results going forward.